Today's High Performance Podcast is brought to you by Josh Phegan Digital. It's the only place that you'll find our expansive resource library. Every form, checklist, visual and dialogue that you'll ever need to systemize your business. Available to edit in PDF to rapidly take your business to the next level. Welcome to High Performance, the podcast featuring Josh Phegan and Alexander Phillips. Alexander, for a lot of agents, it's all about planning. And one of the greatest challenges is to actually have a look at what's going to be happening inside of the calendar. This year, April is going to be a very interesting one. We've got, obviously, in late March, the beginning of Easter. Start of April is going to be, obviously, the end of Easter. Then we've then got like a week or 2 weeks of school holidays. Then we've then got the Anzac Day period. So we've got 3 4-day work weeks spread over the course of a 5-week time frame. How do you go to navigate that particular period? What are the objections that maybe sellers might come up with? And how do you overcome some of those so that you can make sure you can still write great income as we head into that April, May, June market?
Oh, hi, Josh. Thanks for having me again. It's something that we've been discussing since late last year. The best way to navigate April, and normally, the school holidays do coincide with Easter, but it doesn't this year for the first time in quite a long time. What we're doing is just selling all the way through, auctions all the way through, no gaps. We're making sure that the vendors are aware of, the best way to go about it. So what we're doing is, rather than doing a 4-week campaign, we're doing a 5-week campaign to discount that Easter weekend, although we have it open, just to make sure that they don't feel rushed. Probably the best example of looking at it is really probably firstly is actually how the dynamics of how people buy real estate has actually changed a lot over the last few years. And you look at, say, January as a month this year. Our company had a record month for January for the 10 years that we've been in business. And January is traditionally probably the biggest holiday season of the year. So what we find these days is it's all digital. They're available through their phones, through DocuSign, to exchange contracts. They also don't do holidays like they used to, where they do 4 or 5 weeks. I find that it's sort of like a week here, come back for a week, go away again. So you actually get people that are a little bit more focused on buying because they're not like hectic back at work doing, kids sports on the weekend. That's another driver. Like kids sports on the weekend probably take out 30% of the buyers, straight away. So we use those case studies of what happened in January for the April period, and we're just, pushing all the way through. So if you have some really good factual, case studies, social proof about why it can be such a good month and avoid like an overcrowded month such as May, which it probably will be, we're listing all the way through. Do you think that a lot of the hesitancy is driven by agents actually not being aware of how to navigate it, and maybe agents' preferences around their holidays as opposed to really consumer preferences? Because when you have a look at both buyers and sellers, they're pretty keen to go and do a transaction if it's the right property, right? Yeah, definitely. If you need to buy, you've got urgency, you've just sold, you're going to be looking, and they're probably really, when you look at our open homes we had yesterday, the open homes were good numbers and whatnot, but they're probably still very thin premium buyer pool out there. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we're starting to see, is that ultimately there's certain price points where there's a ton of buyers, and then there's other price points where all of a sudden there's only a buyer on every individual property. And so really your job is to make sure that when you're going to work with people, that you've got a reason of why you got to do it now. Mm-hmm. So Alex, if it was me, I'd be doing a transaction. I'd be wanting to try and do something before Easter because you don't want to be on during that Easter period. In a week's time, you're like going to change that dialogue to, what we actually think is going to be a premium time, because there's lots of people that will sell just before Easter. So we'll see a new range of buyers are going to be heading to that market into that April period. And that's where we think you're going to get some of the best prices of the year. Then by the time we get into May and June, we've got another dialogue. And I think this is what a great agent does, is that you've always got a reason of why someone should go do it today. The other key thing is also to making sure that you're doing a lot of campaign planning. We've got a brand, for example, in Brisbane that's going to be launching a lot of properties on Easter Monday with a goal to then sell them at the end of April or at the start of May. And they're literally launching that so they can get lots and lots of properties on Easter Monday when lots of people are at home, and they're ultimately going to be on the major real estate websites. It's about having a narrative and a story as to the reasons why you got to do it now, as opposed to making the decision to go and hold off. And really what you've got to be starting to think about is who's actually got the urgency to go do a transaction. Your job as a great real estate agent is to make sure that you're out in front of people at exactly the right time, and to make that decision that you've got the planning. Alex, ultimately throughout the course of the year, you've got lots of different periods that you got to have a look at. Your June, July periods, the conversation around what it is that you're doing around the Christmas period. And the job of what a great agent does is to always be working at least 12 weeks ahead in your calendar. So you can be starting to plan what you're going to be doing in terms of your resources, but also your narrative, working out what are the 5 Saturday months and the 4 Saturday months. So that way, when you know that you've got a peak amount of auctions that are going to be happening inside of your business, and when ultimately it might be a smaller month because there's less auction Saturdays. Your skill is to make sure you get great planning to make sure that you've got a great business.